Hello.
Today, April 19th, sorry, I just came from work. Israel Rivera, present. Present with me also is Councilor GIVNER. I don't believe Todd will be present today. I think he gave me a heads up saying that he would not be able to make it today. But yeah, it's fine. I guess I would entertain a motion.
Motion to take up item 1.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So item 1 was ordered by Councilor MALDONADO VELEZ. Ordered that the license board is invited to discuss the process of ensuring that all businesses operating within our city are licensed, what happens when the city is notified of an unlicensed business, and how businesses with seasonal licenses are tracked and held to compliance. With us, we have Anthony Luciano. He's the head of the building department, licensing board. Thank you. Thank you for being with us, Anthony. We totally appreciate your time.
Sure.
And I don't see Maldonado Velez. Oh, yes, he's so with us online. Give me one. Sorry, I got you, Jose. With us online, we have Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez, Councilor Jenny Rivera, Councilor Will Puello, and Councilor Linda Vacan. Do you want to go ahead and explain the order, Councilor Maldonado Velez, before I pass it over to Anthony, or you want me to pass it to Anthony first?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory, Mr. Chair. So if I have any questions based on the explanation, I will ask the questions.
All right, perfect. There you go, Mr.
Great. So thank you. So what I did was I took the order and I pulled 3 questions out of it. I'll read the question, and it's actually in the order of the order, and then I'll read what answer I wrote. So, what is the process of ensuring that all businesses within Holyoke are operating within the required licenses? And actually, before I answer that, I just wanted to give a little background that there's only a select number of licenses that are actually issued by the license board. There are other licenses as well that are issued by the state. So the license board is limited to licenses for automotive sales and repair, all the different alcohol, common victular, which is food service, indoor food service. So that's all the Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's,
Are you able,
even the 7-Eleven for their hot dogs, they need a common victular license.
Are you able to send us to a copy of that, just in case?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I can leave you with a copy.
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
Sure. Tables and chair licenses, entertainment, flea market, rooming house/hotel, and open air vendor. So those are all the licenses that the license board works with. Then obviously, there's state licenses, cannabis, and probably many others that don't come under the license board. So then what's the process for ensuring that all businesses within Holyoke are operating within required licenses? And there is no official process, resource, or enforcement plan that's been approved by all departments to ensure that businesses within Holyoke are operating with the required licenses. So while there's no official plan, later on I'll actually give you, there are a couple of positions within the city that do code enforcement, but nothing officially out of the license board department. Next question was, what happens when the city is notified of an unlicensed business? And when that happens, and actually, just so you know, I believe joining us, Alexandria Mayoset, the lead license board clerk administrator, she was going to join us remotely, so if we had any other questions, she might help us with that. So when the city's notified of an unlicensed business, what happens is the head license board clerk makes calls, sends out letters, etc. She contacts the potential licensee or expired licensee to let them know that they're, operating without the license. But she told me she's frequently told by the potential expired licensee that they are going to continue operating anyway. And they do. And how are businesses with seasonal licenses tracked and held to compliance? So the ABCC, the state entity for which is Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, they have inspectors that go around to businesses to check for different violations. They'll send in someone to do the underage thing, and all. So the state is actually our only resource for that. But on the city level, there's no resource for checking that a seasonal license is operating or not.
So we don't do our own like little investigations or any of that?
Nope.
Okay.
And let's see. So those were the questions asked, and then my request from the license board is that the license board could use some assistance from the city in having an official process in place defining which departments do the actual enforcing. Let's see. And the only other thing I had is that the license board office is currently negotiating. So there's a position called the zoning official, which is part of the building department. And I'll give you these after, and I can email it to you. So the zoning official is part of the buildings department, and that position issues tickets for zoning violations and for not having certificates of inspection. And our office is currently negotiating to have that office issue tickets for not having a license when if we notified them, but it's not been officially done yet. So that would be a next step that we're working on, but.
So if I'm understanding correctly, right, if someone notifies you of someone operating illegally, auto body shop or something, let's say, right, you send a letter, they decide to say, we don't care, we continue to work and do our thing. You guys are now negotiating to find someone that can go in and ticket them for that?
Correct.
So currently there is no process. Like we can't send a police officer over there to actually say you got to shut down.
We don't have anything official from a department that will go do that for us. And we don't have the authority.
If I can interrupt real quick.
Sure, Alex. I'm glad you're here.
Hi, so I'm Alex Mason and I'm the license board clerk. So for motor vehicle, it's a little different because I could send officers to stash out if, for example, I sent them out to take pictures of this certain motor vehicle place that was coming up for renewal and just to make sure his lot was in compliance. So if I send officers to stash out for motor vehicles, he could go. Now for bars and when it comes to bars, it's a little different because Officer Stash does only work from 8:30 to 4:30. So when it comes to after hours, we don't have nobody that we can turn to enforce these kind of things. And unless somebody's calling my office stating so-and-so is operating outside their seasonal, we wouldn't know about it.
So, and thank you for that.
Thanks, Alex.
That's great information. So then he would have to go and attend that issue during the day. Then it would have to be between the 8 to 4 hours. So that way, I mean, because we don't have someone that's working after those hours, right?
That's what it sounds like. So would that same officer be able to enforce other things, or is that just for automobile sales and repairs?
So from my understanding, the way they explained it to me recently was Officer Stash is there, but like basically with my guidance. So if I send them out, he will go out. The issue I have is there is no, like, who enforces after 4:30? Who goes to these bars? That's what I think the question is that we all have.
Well, and I think another question is, can we enforce a lot of things until 4:30 in the day with the same officer? Because there are bars that open at like 3 or noon or 11 in the morning. So is this an officer that just does the license board compliance stuff?
There's one officer for the city that would do that.
Okay.
Does that.
Thank you.
And the issue is that after hours, he's off. And because he's off, but that doesn't mean that the police doesn't work. I mean, I don't know. But go ahead. I want to recognize Councilor McGivern. He's been here for quite some time, but I didn't want to cut nobody off. But he's here now, and he might give us...
I didn't want to jump right in like that.
Go ahead, do your thing. Nah.
But, I mean, this has been going on for years. Enforcement has always been an issue in this city. If Officer Sustak can do it, there are 97 other officers that can do it too, and we have police officers on 24/7. So it's not the license board's issue here. It's why isn't the police department enforcing something?
And I think Alex can speak of this. While I've been on the license board for around 4 years, there's been times when there was no person at the police to do this. And we actually only got someone. Alex, was it in the last couple of years? When did we get somebody?
I want to say Officer Sustash joined sometime last year.
So now you have a specific person assigned to you.
He's not assigned to me. He works out of the Board of Health.
I see. Thank you. Okay, so he's from the Board of Health. And then before that, before Sustash, no one.
Correct.
I joined 2 years ago, and when I joined, there was no enforcer.
For motor
No
vehicles,
Officer Sustash.
for motor vehicles, there was always an officer assigned, whether it was repairs or whether it was vehicles abandoned in private property, or there's officers that would go around just looking for them.
Okay. I guess there's more questions that I could follow up with. But go ahead. Yeah, finish.
From the license board point of view, it would be helpful if there was some kind of guidance document for each department as to how they work with the license board and what we can ask, what the expectation of what we can ask for and have them do. And that would just, because I think depending on who you speak to, oh, we do that or no, we don't.
So I want to recognize Captain Moriarty. He's with us too. He has his hand raised, and feel free.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Pertaining to our code enforcement officer, years ago, maybe a decade, we started with Officer Joey Jones. Once he retired, it then went to Officer Edgar Lopez. He retired, and I'm not sure about the gap of time between Officer Sustash and Officer Lopez, but we've had 3 officers. Pertaining to any nighttime issues, Councilor McGivern is correct. We have been called in on several different occasions to aid in the enforcement of closures or any other items the city is looking for after normal business hours. There has to be some coordination, obviously, but it has happened in the past on a regular basis.
Thank you for that, Captain Moriarty. I would like to recognize the mayor.
Hey, good evening, everybody. So there has been a lot of work behind trying to create some sort of system and structure to help with enforcement. And I think some of the folks here are somewhat familiar with the level of enforcement we've been proactively dealing with when it comes to renewals of alcohol licenses and whatnot. Through the Flex Squad, and particularly in our last meeting, we did talk extensively about the actual enforcement part, particularly with seasonals that are operating off-season, or any of the liquor license holders who still have gotten their renewal that might still be operating. And at that last meeting, yes, we did talk about how do we proactively address in a way that we're de-escalating. Certainly we don't want to create our first attempt here as we try to establish the new norm and get departments on board with the direction we're going when it comes to our expectations around this, is start with the code enforcement officer, to reach out to these businesses of concern and kind of just let them know the potential ramification or whatever the case. Not saying whether or not, Alex's office does receive certain complaints or a concern. We have to prove it one way or another, but instead, letting folks know, hey, this came in, or a potential hearing can take place in front of the license board or whatever the case, so we can start that. And if it continues to occur, then at that point, communicating with the police department in the night shift, identifying those spots that aren't supposed to be operating and making sure that the department goes in there and shuts it down completely. The other piece too that I find interesting here in Holyoke is the renewal of liquor licenses, the annuals. Typically, when we do the renewals and send this information to the Commonwealth, we do this thing where we approve contingent upon. And so in the eyes of the Commonwealth, when we submit our report saying, hey, these businesses are approved, in their eyes, they're good to go. But here locally, they're not good to go. And there's a question as to whether or not, those that still haven't received their liquor license from the board in hand is operating illegally in the eyes of the Commonwealth. Practically, you wouldn't, if a particular establishment is not at all ready for a liquor license, ideally, you'd submit to the Commonwealth that this business is not in compliance and therefore there's no renewal here. And that business will have to deal with the Commonwealth to get their license reestablished or whatever. But because Holyoke is over licensed, if a business loses their license, then there's no getting that license back at all unless they buy one from somebody or buy one that's available. And one of the things we talked about at the last Flex Squad meeting is I think the license board, as pro-business and friendly as they have been for years, we're going to have to take a strong position on this issue, because what's particularly concerning to me is businesses that say, yeah, we don't have to do that, or we understand, but we're okay here. And I think we're going to have to, just like how this office put our foot down on renewals when it came to the last go around, we're going to have to step on the gas a little bit for the stragglers that kind of sort of don't want to come around because of however we've practiced in the past. So the first attempt here is to be proactive, connect with the business owners and say, hey, this is a warning, please comply. And then sooner rather than, or at some point, the Liquor License Commission or the License Commission putting their foot down and just not renew with no contingents, nothing, and let them deal with the state or whatever, just to get that point through. At the same time, proactively working with our police department as well as our licensed code enforcement officer to be sure that we're strategically going after this. And to the commissioner's point, there has to be some sort of coordinated approach. There has been a lot of coordination internally going on, to his point. We just gotta we gotta get there. And there like I said, there's been some movement and some structure and a system in place, and people are feeling it. I know, because I get all the complaints here, and I'm sure all of you guys do too, which tells me it's working. But we're dealing now with a handful that's a little bit becoming a little complicated, where we're going to have to step up the enforcement a little bit. So I hope that, just want to offer some insight there. It's not that things go ignored or unattended to. It's just, as we continue to do cross-departmental coordination through the Flex Squad, particularly, there's been a lot of good collaboration going on, a lot of learning that's going on and new ideas as we try to, untangle past practices that, really haven't been attended to for a couple of years now.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate the insight. If you want to continue.
So I actually wanted to request if I could address the mayor about the information about the, just to reply that Alex made me aware of his interest in eliminating the conditions, and that I was going to email him tomorrow. I just wanted to get through this because I only found out 2 days ago.
That's good.
That's all I wanted to say.
No, go ahead. Yeah, thank you. And I noted, I think he heard you because your microphone is on. And if you wanted to continue, or you're all set.
I think I'm all set unless Alex.
No, I just want to make sure he's all set before I move on to Jose.
I'm all set.
Thank you. Thank you. Jose, go ahead. You have any questions as the maker of the order?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for putting it on the agenda. I spoke with Alex, I think it was about a month or 2 months ago, and she filled me in on as far as her process. And she's doing the best she can. She is a one-person team, I believe, in the licensing board, really doing a lot of administrative work and the conversations and the phone calls and everything. So, I do want to applaud Alex for all the work that she does. And I think us as a city, we do need to, and then I'll follow up with the mayor and appreciate his work and what he's doing as far as getting our businesses, getting entities in our city to be compliant with our laws. He just said it. There's been many years, you can even say decades, of not enforcing anything, of businesses doing whatever they please. And now we finally have a mayor that, is not coming from a place of I want to get you in trouble. I want to, fine you. I want to close you down. But at the end of the day, we have agreements as a community that were made, or we can change as the legislative body to make sure that we're all agreeing that these are the laws, so that we can all be on the same page. We want to bring in new businesses to our city, but if we bring in new businesses to a city where there's licenses that are not, businesses that are operating without being licensed, or not sure what the process is, not knowing what enforcement looks like, if we have commissions that don't know what that looks like, what the process is, then we can't really grow. Because if we are going to grow, we're going to try to get better, it's just going to be a hot mess. Keep using that term, but that's what's coming up a lot this past week. So I appreciate Alex for all the work they're doing. Appreciate Josh, Mayor Garcia, for what they're doing. And I really hope that, and I guess my ask is, what can we, it doesn't have to be answered now, and it'll be more in conversations, what can we do on the legislative side to really make sure that it's clear as to, hey, this is the enforcer, or is it that the police department has to provide an enforcer for all these boards and commissions and departments? I think what the chair said, there's other questions, so this is just the beginning of this conversation as well. But we do need to get to a place where people know that, hey, no, I can't operate past 2 a.m. We're done at 2 a.m. Or, yes, I can't operate during these months because it's not my license. Or I need X, Y, and Z to be able to open. And I think we're doing a good job getting there, relaying that message, making sure people are compliant. But the enforcement part is very important. And I hope that we can figure something out. I mean, we know there's other talks, there's other conversations or other items around the police and all that stuff. And I know the police department itself is going through some things, and us trying to manage what their hot mess is. But I hope that we can figure this out sooner rather than later, because I think this is a huge part to making sure that if and when we do grow and we do get more businesses, making sure that anyone that comes to their city is very clear as to how we run things around here. And right now it's not very clear. I think I forgot who it was, someone just said, you ask someone something and they'll tell you, oh, you do this completely different on this other side. And we can't have that in our city. We want to operate efficiently and grow bigger. So that's all I really want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez. I'd like to recognize Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair Rivera, and everybody for the, I think what's a very important issue. But also, I would be reluctant if I didn't talk about two sides of the sword here and do so in a way to advocate for business owners. Anthony can tell you a month ago or 2 months ago, there was an incredibly lively meeting at the license board. And I think, without going into details, and I don't want to just talk about liquor licenses, because I'm concerned about repair shops, people doing repairs in the middle of the street on cars. You know, it's blatant. You know, there is no enforcement, and you know there is no license to issue for someone that is working out of their driveway because it's illegal. You know, and yeah, you know, I've brought complaints to the proper department's enforcement to their attention, and you get some results. But why don't we have people out there looking? When it comes to a complaint, you know, the enforcing agent, whether it's the police department, board of health, codes department, doesn't go out and enforce a complaint. They go out to investigate. And I think the mayor said the correct thing. You then contact the person who holds the license, bring it to their attention, and get the other side of the story. And then you try to diplomatically, you know, come to an agreement and come to a compromise. The biggest complaint I get by people who have licenses, liquor licenses, for example, is what they pay for liability insurance is astronomical. And they're required to do that. Now, when they pay that, the overhead costs for running, and it's not all bars. Most of our licenses are now attached to a restaurant, you know, with the bar, or sometimes both, sometimes just only when they're serving food. And that adds to the cost of what they have to do when the city comes down and says, well, now you need this type of sprinkler, now you need this type of system, now you need this, and perhaps they do. But this year, it seemed to happen with no warning at all to very, you know, long-established business owners who are an important part of our fabric. The biggest complaint I get about liquor license is social clubs are selling liquor without any license. You know, and you know, we're a membership. You know, you get a membership, oh, you can have a beer. Yeah, now you're no longer a member, you want another beer, you got to join as a member again. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's wink, wink, you know, we're okay, everything's fine. It's not. You know, people who are paying to operate a legitimate business are being hurt by a social club who was going underneath the radar. Seasonal licenses, I think, are great, but they're meant for the season. When a seasonal license is done, isn't the liquor selling done? So we could talk about liquor licenses forever. I'd rather talk about repair shops and used car lots, because nobody is enforcing them. Used car lots are out of control. There's, it takes the city council to bring it to the attention of the city that there's too many lots, too many cars on this lot, that, you know, eyesores as you drive by. You know, we all know it, we all see it. You know, the repairs are supposed to be done in a contained garage to take care of hazardous materials with the correct separation of oil and equipment that they need. And you drive by and people are doing oil changes on the street in front of a garage. These are the enforcement things that bring the city down. Our fabric, we are an industrial city. You know, if we don't support business and figure out how to make this work, you know, we might as well just start laying people off, because we're going to have no revenue coming in. You know, the amount of revenue that comes in through small business in this city is incredible, whether it be property tax or other taxes that are paid through the business itself. And we need to start supporting these people, not trying to bring them down. And if there is something wrong, the mayor's correct. You got to have the right people to go out there, investigate, not compromise, but reason and work with people. And there's always another side to the story.
You know, I wholeheartedly agree with that piece. Like, if people are putting in their time and their effort to run the business to the way that they're supposed to run it, then like they deserve every right. And like a lot of the stuff that happened, like you mentioned, as of recent, that's hard to explain, I guess, right? For me at least, and it's hard to fathom because of the people that it's impacted and the businesses that it's impacted, long-standing businesses in Holyoke too as well. But I guess for me, it's when there is the occasion where there needs to be the enforcement for the person or for the business or for the mechanic that's working outside or whomever, which I feel guilty for, but at the end of the day, enforcement is enforcement, right? Who is doing that? That's the piece. And if we're writing laws or we're creating policy, then who's charged with enforcing these laws and policies, right? We have departments that have different officers that, and I don't mean officers in the sense of police officer. I mean officers as in like code enforcement, and like public health department has different officers, like different departments has different officers that carry out different duties. So it doesn't solely fall on the police department, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think they're the last resource when it comes down to this piece, right? If we don't have someone that fills that role, then who do you call? It's not Ghostbusters. But I see Josh has his hand. Oh, my bad. Wait, before Josh.
We've seen all the vacancies in the building department and the health department recently, and the salary problems, and that's a big part of it.
That's a major
some of those
thing,
positions are the ones that can be proactive, like the mayor said. Those are the people that should be out there working with people, looking for things and correcting it. Looking at the license, how many cars on this lot, and say, hey, come here. You got a few too many cars. They go, most people will own up to it and correct it. Most business owners will correct the problem if it's brought to their attention in a reasonable amount of time.
That's why it should be brought to their attention in a reasonable way. Just like Josh had mentioned and you mentioned. I want to recognize Councilor GIVNER before she chews me off and before I introduce Josh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add or echo that there's been a long time since the city has enforced everything all around in a fair way. So I see a lot of progress being made. I also commend the mayor for taking the initiative and pulling the different departments together and saying, hey, we really need to get on top of this so that everybody knows to expect the same treatment. It's my understanding that letters go out and phone calls are made to remind people that their licenses are going to expire. So I think this is the learning year for a lot of people, unfortunately. This has happened before where, Anthony was mentioning that people get a letter and they say, well, I'm still operating and I'm not, going to update anything yet because for whatever reason. But this is the year where people are basically finding out that when they don't update, there is actually a consequence. So I think that's important. We all need a little smack on the hand sometimes to help us, help remind us that there are laws in place we have to be compliant with. And I think that goes for a lot of the things I try to fight for in the city, like, warnings or, things for quality of life issues, getting a warning for your trash or for parking in the wrong direction maybe, or, all the little things that drive everybody crazy that may be a hazard, that may be a violation. If we are made aware that these are a problem, then we can fix it. But if people don't know that they're not allowed to do things, then they never fix it. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Councilor GIVNER. Now I'll recognize the mayor.
Thanks, councilors. Yeah, it's just, I think this first year around has been just a little bit of growing pains. And again, there's been a lot of internal learning as well through the whole process, and great conversations happening between personnel and how we can be better moving forward. I'm less concerned. The enforcement's happening, it's going to happen more. And we can expect to see that getting better and better over a period of time, especially as we continue to work together to support these departments, close some gaps, and continue to build up and so forth. To Councilor McGivern's point, we have also been learning about, now that there's these code compliance issues, there are, and it's not a lot of, I know right now we're talking about the gap and it sounds negative, but there's a lot of good than it is bad. So like in that process of enforcement, especially when we did the press release, people came in compliance dramatically. And we're talking about a handful of organizations that we're still trying to be strategic and proactive about and continue to help before we start really drawing the line. But we also learned that there are, to McGivern's point, that there are some code compliance issues that are like adding a sprinkler system to a small business, especially if it's a nonprofit social club. 100,000 to add 150,000 can be a little far stretch and potentially threaten to shut an organization down that's, a lot of people attend to. And so one of the things that we're going to be working on through our ARPA process, just to let you guys know, and I know, I hope we can get some support behind this, is creating a bucket with some funding that allows these businesses to apply for to get some money, ARPA money, so that they can do these code compliance issues. Like, for example, Hamels, it's $50,000 to put a sprinkler system in that building. Great venue, a lot of people use it, a lot of people have gotten married in there, events happen in there, and so forth. So ideally, through this ARPA program, this program that we're trying to create, hopefully that we could create where they would say, hey, yeah, we need to do this, we get some quotes, whatever, and we move forward and get the thing installed. A program like that to kind of help meet in the middle as a municipality, so that we're supporting that, so that we're sympathetic to that concern of asking for a major investment that's just not clearly feasible for that small business owner. So those are kind of the things that we've been talking about internally to, again, to Councilor McGivern's point, like, yeah, we need to enforce, and we will be doing more enforcement, but also there's that kind of, I call it a knot, where businesses want to do that particular upgrade so they can continue running their business, but it's just clearly not feasible. How does government help meet in the middle so that, we're being proactive on that front. But like I said, in time, I think there's already been a lot of progress to date. I think, as we go forward, you're going to see more progress on that front as far as enforcement's concerned. But also trying to be sympathetic or proactive in ways that allows us to think outside the box so that we can help our businesses succeed rather than, jeopardize them to closing their doors. So as far as car lots is concerned, the Board of Health working with Officer Sustash, there's more work to do, but they have been proactive on dealing with that issue. I know through some of the Flex Squad work, some of the car lots going in there, counting how many cars that they have, and if they've exceeded the number of cars they're allowed, they were given a letter and trying to resolve that issue and so forth. So definitely a lot more work to do. But on the flip side, on a positive note, you guys can feel confident that things are moving. We're not there yet, but they're moving.
Thank you. And Councilor Maldonado Velez.
He stepped away.
No, he's muted.
Thank you. I was going to say, yes, we do see that things are moving, which is great. I just wanted to clarify, this is not against any sort of business specifically or anything. Aside from the city not really enforcing anything, I think also part of that is businesses opening up without knowing what the proper laws were. That's really what it was. If you're not given any sort of sometimes hoops are good to jump through to make sure that it's the hoops that you need to jump through. And since we haven't done that as much, then people are operating thinking that they're operating the way that they should be. And I think now we're changing that up. I mean, I just think of the perfect example where we changed the whole zone for a business that, as the council approved a decade ago, when it shouldn't have been that way. You know what I mean? So I think as a city have failed our businesses as well, not being clear about our laws, our ordinances, and not enforcing them. And I think it's going to be growing pains. There's going to be some pushback. But I overall, in the conversations that I've heard from businesses that have had complaints, there's also an appreciation. There has been an appreciation of oh crap, Holyoke is actually doing something now, which is you know, yes, now I have to be compliant and follow some of the rules. Based on what the mayor's saying, it's not like we're just telling them, hey, you need to do everything on your own. Like, we're here to help. We're going to try to find ways to make sure you're compliant. But we do need to get there. We do need to get there eventually. I do have a quick question to Mayor Garcia, because he mentioned about the ARPA. But I know a couple months ago, we were talking about a graffiti program. Is there any update on that? And I'm sorry if there was an email sent. I just wanted to check in about that.
I just got an update today, meeting with Alicia Zoller, but she's been working with DPW and trying to establish the program. Like, how do you submit, how do you report graffiti and where does it go? What department will be responsible in that department? Who's going to be the person that actually goes and does the removing? There was also the ordering of the equipment and all the tools needed for it. And so it looks like that should be available very soon. It's going to be out of the DPW. There was a person identified that'll be responsible for doing the actual graffiti removal. And that's another perfect example, right? The flex squad was going around and we were citing building owners for having graffiti on their property. And then we got the complaint, hey, I remove it, it comes back again, I remove it, and it can be very costly. Considering the environment we're in, we thought, hey, that makes sense. And actually, it was just that was during my conversation with Sarno when I heard that there was even a flex squad, or named it the flex squad. Was that the graffiti removal program through the municipality, and then Alicia reached out to the community development person out there in Springfield, figured out liability and other things to be sure that if we build this, how do you navigate potential liability and whatnot. So she was able to replicate that, and now it's just in a matter of getting to a point where folks, if there's graffiti, you could call, and then we'll, at no charge to the building owner, we can remove the graffiti. So that's coming.
Thank you. I'm all set.
If I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Just two things real quick. On graffiti, we years ago invested in a machine. I think the DPW had it. I'm sure it's no longer around, but it was a machine that would be used to just a call of a property owner that said that they needed help removing some graffiti, and the crew would show up and just take the graffiti off. I said there's more than one side to every story. I'll give you a quick example, which there is no right and there is no wrong. They're both of this enforcement is wrong and both of it is right. One day liquor licenses, I get involved with a little bit for a couple organizations, one being the merry-go-round. And the merry-go-round doesn't want a liquor license, obviously. We don't even want a food license. We operate, for the purpose of running the ride. However, to sustain the cost of the merry-go-round, which is very expensive, we rent the merry-go-round for private parties who, if they want to serve liquor, if they want to sell liquor, have to get a one-day event license. So recently, one of the largest not-for-profit organizations in the city did their annual party at the merry-go-round and wanted a liquor license to sell beer and wine. No problem. They have to get it. The license board has to approve it, has to pass the fire department. They have to get liability insurance. The city's name goes on it. The merry-go-round's name goes on the insurance. And they as the renter and running the event, are on the insurance to protect everybody for the serving of alcohol. So the fire department, was okay with the merry-go-round because we have a sprinkler system, and it's in pretty good shape because we work close with the fire department on public safety, especially for what to do in case of a fire or something happened when the ride was operating. And we worked very hard with our employees. But the fire department, and I understand this, said, if food is being served, I said, well, I think the event people are bringing in one vendor to serve food. It's a 2-hour party, 2.5-hour party. But I'll check that. They said, well, if food's being served, the fire department is against sternals underneath the hot dishes for keeping food hot. Okay? So I said, that's interesting because I always heard keeping food hot is very important before you serve it. So I was standing around, and the health department showed up that day. The vendor was a barbecue, local regional barbecue person who was there and was serving barbecue sandwiches, pulled pork, with a couple sternals underneath their heater. And the health department cited him and said, "You need more sternals." So I said, "Now look, we got one department telling us sternals are a no-no, and one department telling us you need more sternals, and they're both right. Figure it out."
The wrong part is lack of communication. Thank you for that.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So you have one last comment, Mayor?
Yeah, I was just, so that's part of the ongoing saga here with interpretation, what's allowed, not allowed, and what's allowed, and you know, the chief certainly has discretion on a lot of these things, and one of the internal conversations we've been having between our offices, the chief, the legal department, other departments, this office, is trying to get a clear interpretation of what's really allowed and what's really allowed and what's really not allowed, and you know, of these concerns, are there alternative ideas that can be pursued and approved under the, you know, under what would be the chief's discretion? You know, another example is friolators or frying underneath tents. I go to the Springfield Arts Festival last summer, and there were friolators not underneath tents, next to tents, and I had asked the vendor if the municipality allowed it, and they said that the Springfield's okay with it as long as there's a fire extinguisher nearby, and lo and behold, they had a fire extinguisher nearby. So I'm assuming that that was the chief's discretion there, Springfield. So, you know, I am challenging a little bit without, you guys know me by now, I'm not a top-down kind of guy. I don't like to necessarily stronghold any department as long as they're following the laws. For as far as the fire department's concerned, the chief has a lot of power. And so we're all trying to work together into trying to get a better consensus going on how we respond to some of these things that, from the outside looking in, it sounds silly, but when you hear some of the stories that has happened in other communities, you know, nobody wants to be the one that says, you know, I told you so, or whatever the case. So I'm trying to be sensitive to the concern that the chief has, while also challenge him to think of new and alternative ways that allows people to go in and do what we're all used to doing, while also maintaining the greater safety, which we all are concerned about. Just have a different mindset or approach of how to achieve the greatest safety possible. So I'm with you, Councilor. Conversations are happening, and I'm hoping that, you know, we come to a better resolution when it comes to some of these things in the near future as we go forward.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion. Jose, complied with? Yes. Entertain a motion that the order is complied with?
I'd like to make a motion that item number 1 be complied with.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Entertain a motion to take up item 2.
Motion to take up item 2. Thank you, Anthony.
I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2 was filed by Councilor Puello. Order that the chief of police please provide a narrative describing what happened to the previous gray Ford Taurus mayoral issue vehicle. Please include any, I think Captain Moriarty is here to fill in his place. Please include any cost insurance payouts to other parties and current city vehicle use policy. To my understanding, we did not actually receive the insurance payout to what it costs for the repairs of the other vehicle yet. So I don't have that with regards to that, but as the maker of the order, Councilor Puello, would you like to elaborate and speak on the order before I go ahead?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I just wanted to see if maybe we could also take up item 3. We did get an email attachment if we could take those up as
take
a
them as a
package.
package?
And then I
Oh,
was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say-
sure. I'll entertain a
Yeah.
motion to take up item 2 and 3 as a package.
Motion to take items 2 and 3 as a package.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 3 is from Chief Pratt, update on order filed by Councilor Puello regarding Mayor Garcia accident and city vehicle summary crash report. That's in the email. It's not here. Okay, so give me 1 second. I don't think I got that one. I'm gonna be honest.
That crash report is in your packet.
It's in the. I didn't see it. All I have. Oh, it's after 3. Yep. Here it is. Report summary. Vehicle information. Okay. So I guess, am I to just look at the pictures and? Yeah, I was gonna say, Will, you wanna kind of speak on the order,
Yeah.
and then I'll have Captain Moriarty speak on behalf of the chief for now, if he can, and if he can't, then we'll table it until the chief can be present. If that's
Yeah,
okay with you.
I was gonna say if we could do that, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a great idea. Maybe that would help answer some of the questions I've got written down here. Appreciate it.
Which one? Table it?
No,
Or-
if maybe Captain Moriarty wants
Okay.
to go through the narrative and just maybe explain what happened, maybe even the mayor, if he wants to talk about it, and then I think maybe that would answer some questions.
So
I'm ready when you guys are.
all right, got you, Captain. Whenever you're ready.
All right, well, the accident took place back in March of 2022. We have a listing of a time of 7:38 in the morning. Mayor vehicle was traveling, sideswiped a parked vehicle that was unoccupied. The vehicle that was being operated by the mayor is the Ford Taurus. The vehicle was, quote, scrapped. The police department or the city received a payout from the insurance company of $8,282. And that was then put into what we call the scratch and dent for the police department. That was from travelers. As for information pertaining to if and any money was given to the vehicle owner that was struck, we don't have that information. The city would have to contact travelers insurance. Pertaining to the question on the city vehicle use, we have no say on that. We have our own vehicle use for the Holyoke Police Department and the personnel there. We have nothing on city vehicles that are not under the control of the police department.
All right, thank you, Captain Moriarty. Real quick, I'd like to recognize our city council have administrative assistant Jeff Anderson Burgos, because I feel like he has something to add.
Yeah, just on the question related to the payout to the owner of the other vehicle. At the meeting when this was received, it was I believe it was Councilor Jourdain who had noted that information was missing. So when this was put on the agenda, I reached out to the chief to see if he had that information. He said his department didn't have it, so I reached out to the solicitor's office. So they're actively working on getting that information. So I did update Councilor Jourdain to that point earlier today, and he suggested once this discussion happens to maybe just have it tabled until that information comes back.
Thank you. Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Captain Moriarty, for that narrative. I do have a couple questions on what Captain Moriarty said. So the owner of the vehicle on the crash report is listed as the City of Holyoke Police. So is there a difference between the police department and the actual City of Holyoke or other departments owning the vehicle? Because I think you said that the police department didn't own it.
No, typically, I'm not sure on the time frame of it, but the vehicle is taken from the police inventory of vehicles. It's been that way for at least since I've been around, so close to 30 years.
So if it's from the police inventory, then I mean, it's probably fair to say it's a police vehicle, right? So it would fall under whatever motor vehicle policy you guys have.
Police vehicle that is given to the mayor, so it falls under the city. It does not, that vehicle is considered a civilian type vehicle, does not fall under police policy.
So, and just to be clear, if what I'm understanding, real quick, and I'm sorry to cut anybody off, but it sounds like that car got retired, right? And because it's retired, it changed over to the city itself, and the city itself uses it as they see fit, and it seems to be that it's the mayor, right? They took it away. It used to have a sign. Go ahead.
The vehicle is part of the police inventory.
Oh, okay.
And that vehicle is then given to the mayor's office, where it becomes the mayor's vehicle, not the police department's.
Okay, wait. So once it's given to the mayor, right, it is no longer in possession of the police department. That means they have no ownership or claim to ownership whatsoever after it's given to the mayor, right?
It is known as the mayor's vehicle.
Okay. All right, then. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Puello. Go ahead, Councilor Puello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to clarify, I mean, is it one of the leased cars? Is it one of the cars that was purchased in the previous lots when we do the big lots? I mean, where does this car come from? Like, how is it, how do we pay for it? Is it leased? I mean, how do we get it?
I think all our cars are paid for, but Captain Moriarty, could you speak more on that, or do you not have that information at the moment?
For that vehicle in question pertaining to the accident, I don't have that information. In the past, it's mostly vehicle that has actually been purchased. It's not a leased vehicle. Mm-hmm. To my knowledge, leased vehicles are the patrol vehicles that our officers use on the line.
Thank you. So, real quick, Councilor Puello, so to my understanding, and I'm sure Councilor McGivern probably will come and correct this eventually, but to my understanding, I believe so far the term lease is not necessarily a lease. Like when we're leasing these vehicles, we're actually purchasing them after they're done. They're like our cars. So like a lot of these cars, once we're done with the terms, technically the police department owns them, to my understanding. But let me recognize Councilor GIVNER and then Councilor McGivern and then the mayor.
You said that in one breath, Coco,
Just saying. So just want to make sure that they get theirs first. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just a little confused as to what we're talking about at this point. I understand there was an accident with the mayor's vehicle. There's a police report or a crash report. Insurance is involved. I'm just trying to get a little clarification as to why we're talking about this for so long. I don't really understand what the big deal is about a fender bender. Thanks.
I can answer that for you if the chair.
He walked out for a second. Give him a second. He's coming back.
What was that? You would like? Yeah, I didn't understand. So you need a clarification from me or from the counselor? That. Why are we talking about this fender bender? There's an accident report and stuff. Like, what's the problem? So I'm gonna be honest with you. Somebody filed an order. I am addressing the order, taking it up out of the jacket. I think the counselor, that question might be more directed to Councilor Puello, but I think he's just trying to gain some more insight on the accident.
What are we trying to clarify, please? Thank you.
Can I answer that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate your answer, Mr. Chairman. I think that's pretty fair. I think to my friend, the Ward 4 counselor, it's a pretty simple answer. It's a city vehicle where an incident happened with a city employee and city funds, and this council didn't know about it, so we're just trying to seek a little bit more clarification, getting some information on the financials, and reading over the report like we would any other city incident or anything else that would happen. That's all. I think the answer is pretty straightforward for that one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope that answers the Ward 4 counselor's question.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern?
Thank God that we have car insurance, right? Just to clarify, and I do have a story, but for years now, and Captain Mayardi said it, we've okayed and approved that a mayor's car would be a car that has seen its better days with the police department. Usually the chief's about to be retired car, or there were years ago there was a deputy chief or one of the captain's cars that are necessary. They're unmarked cruisers. The sirens that they have would be portable ones that they could use if needed, even as chief or whatever their duties were. I know we have a policy, I believe it's an ordinance for all vehicles in the city, department heads who have access to vehicles, and we have certain department heads that are allowed to bring vehicles home and certain department heads that do not bring vehicles home for different reasons. The mayor is been given the courtesy of a vehicle 24/7. Most mayors have their own personal cars, but for certain trips and for certain occasions, they will use the city car, which makes sense and is appropriate. The story I get to tell you is when Marty Dunn became our mayor, Martin Dunn. When Marty became state senator, I filled in as the acting mayor back in 1991. Yes, in 1991, it wasn't that long ago. And when I got into the mayor's office, they said, Joe, the mayor vehicle is parked outside, can you bring it home? And I said, yeah, but I lived on Beach Street in Ward 4. I didn't have a driveway. And, I said, I don't really have any place to park it. I went out and looked at the mayor's vehicle, and at the time it was the retired car, undercover car of Chief Paquette. And it had 183,000 miles on it. It was in dire need of a paint job, a few rust spots, and I thought it was a Fred Flintstone mobile because the brakes where you put your feet through the floorboard and stop the car. And I said, I'm not bringing that home. And they said to me, well, if you leave it here overnight, it's going to get vandalized. I said, who cares? But for years now, we've had that agreement with the police department that the mayor's car will be supplied through the police department. We don't take a brand new, all cars in the police department are owned. The so-called lease to buy program that was experimental a few years ago, we found out wasn't really lease to buy. It was just it was a decent deal with a dealer, with a local dealer, but it just wasn't what we think of as lease to buy. We try to replace 4 to 5 vehicles a year in the police department because most of their vehicles run 24/7. It's not one police officer like the state troopers have their own car. One car services 3 different shifts, up to three different officers in the course of a day, and you can imagine the wear and tear. So vehicles get retired fairly routine out of the police department, but a good mayor knows how to drive one. Could bring it down, to certain occasions, have to travel to Boston, have to travel, out of state for a little bit, they can use it and it makes sense.
Thank you. Mayor Garcia?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify the history of that particular vehicle. It was, I think it's about 11, 12 years old. It was purchased under the Pluta administration, and it was Mayor Pluta's vehicle, and then Mayor Morse inherited it, and it was Mayor Morse's vehicle throughout his time here, and then I inherited it. And it was no secret, I was very transparent as I could be with the situation, and if anybody cares, we were all okay. We came out of that accident well, nobody was hurt, thankfully, and just happy to be here and continue to do the people's work.
Thank you. Councilor Puello?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a couple more follow-up questions. So, to Captain Moriarty, who's the second occupant? And do we know who that was? Who the second occupant was in vehicle 1?
Stand by. Yeah, they got the report here.
Captain Moriarty, I can answer that if you want.
Sure, sir. I'm not finding a listing on the report right now. Yes, if you don't
Captain
mind.
Martin, can you just clarify quickly the time that says on the report when the incident took place?
7:38 in the morning.
7:38 in the morning.
Wouldn't that be your
is
kid?
the time that I take the kids to school before driving to City Hall. So I had my guardian daughter in the passenger side and the twin children's in the back seat, and the vehicle that I crashed into it's a very stupid accident. It was right next door, coming out of the driveway,
Your neighbor's house.
right next to the parked neighbor's car. Swiped
man.
it.
That's happened to me
So,
before.
yeah,
It's
so
okay.
anyways, the short answer to the question is, it was my kids so I could take them to school and then go to City Hall for the day.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. Councilor Puello, real quick, just like for me, I know we're asking questions just to get down to certain things, but like, just be careful that it doesn't become like an interrogation and stuff. Because to me, I'm kind of feeling like it's getting a little too much. But I'm gonna allow you to ask your questions as long as it's
No,
not,
definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Because
appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and
right.
I definitely don't want anyone to feel like that. Like I said, it's just to figure out what happened because we don't know. I mean, we don't know anything about.
no, I respect
about
that
the
too.
accident.
But
Yeah.
like, you're making me feel like, damn, we bringing kids into this stuff. Like, that's not even cool. Like,
Oh
but-
I mean, I didn't even know. It says
Yeah.
operator. You know what I mean? Operator
Yeah.
1. That's why I asked. But
No.
uh,
All right. So.
oh yeah.
Before I recognize Councilor Jenny Rivera, this order, would you like it to be complied with, or is this something that's tabled? I'm feeling like it's complied with, unless you would really like to see the insurance paperwork, which they could still email us anyways. No.
Well, no, so I think it's complied with as long as they send in the information on the, if legal could get back to us on the information. But I did have one final question, Mr. Chairman. It was,
Sure.
it was for the mayor. First of all, I had a comment, I'm glad everybody's okay and that everybody's fine. But I did have a question about an ordinance that was filed, kind of pertaining to this. It was about department heads reporting, I think it was any property damage that was over $500. So I think that the ordinance was vetoed, and I think one of the reasons it was vetoed was because there was something that was already in the works at City Hall. So I'm wondering if maybe there's an update on that.
Yeah, so the DLS is working on drafting the financial management set of policies manual, and I'm told it's going to be done soon. As soon as it's done, I know I was talking to one of the counselors the other day about it, said as soon as it's done, it'll be brought forward so that we can make whatever minor additional adjustments we want to do, so we can get it codified. And it was suggested that maybe perhaps we can somehow, some way, come up with language that meets the intent behind the order that was vetoed, and then having it reflected in the financial management set of policies so that that it's clear what the expectations are when it comes to managing city resources. But it should be coming. As a matter of fact, let me follow up on an email. It should be done soon. I'm just waiting for that first draft to be forwarded to me by the DLS.
Thank you. Councilor Jenny Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. Doesn't come on. So anyways, I'm getting on this subject. I'm not sure what was so hard to understand. It was a very straightforward accident. Our mayor did not lie. It's on there. You could go to the police station, pick up the police report, into what I believe we were all given the police report, and straightforward, having 25 years in personal injury. So that's why we have insurance for incidents like this. He was not drunk. He wasn't doing nothing illegal. Accidents do happen, straightforward. It should be complied with, and let's move. Next subject.
Thank you. And Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you. And I just want to clarify, because I don't want anybody to feel offended. I mean, but, just to get my 2 cents in, we didn't receive this report. We had to go out and ask for it. But, you know, I do appreciate the questions. I don't want anybody to feel disrespected. I promise that wasn't my intent. We just wanted to get some information on what happened. You know, if it was me, I guarantee I'd probably be on the front page of Mass Live, but that's okay.
Trust me, me too. Me too.
Yeah, that's right. You too, Councilor. That's right. But no, I seriously, I appreciate it. I'm glad everybody's okay. I'm glad everybody's fine. And if we could get that info though on the payout on the other.
No, I'll make sure that when we comply the order, that it's complied with in order to get the city solicitor's department to get us that insurance payout of what the amount was.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Captain Moriarty.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Perfect. In order.
Motion.
That
orders items 2 and 3 be complied with.
Yes, under the conditions that. Not under the conditions, but the city solicitor's office provide us with the copy of the insurance payout of.
Okay. That motion that items 2 and 3 be complied with, and that the solicitor's office provide copies of the insurance claim to the city council.
To the city council. Yep. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Entertain a motion to take up item 4.
Motion to take up item 4.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4 was filed by myself, Councilor GIVNER, Jose Maldonado. Oh, so then we should take them both up, item 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
As a package.
So motion to take up items 4 and 5 as a package.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
This is an order that was jointly filed by myself, Councilor GIVNER, Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez, Councilor MURPHY-ROMBOLETTI, and Councilor Jenny Rivera. Item 4 reads, order that Chapter 50, Article 2 of the Holyoke City Ordinances be amended to add Section 50 to 56, establishing a police commission. And then item 5 reads that order that Section 34 of the City Charter be amended to establish a police commission by virtue of special act in accordance with the provisions of an amendment, Article 2, Section A of the Massachusetts Constitution. I myself signed on to this order. Well, I'm kind of one of the co-creators, I guess, or whatever. And I've reached out to other councilors that I felt like they would like to be a part of it. If anybody else would like to still sign on, I guess maybe it's too late, but
it's never too late.
Feel free to express any opinions or any feelings you have towards the particular orders. For me, after the audit and after like a variety of different things that are coming up, I'm feeling, well, originally I said this when I was running my campaign, that I would try to file an order around forming a police commission, or at least starting the conversation, just because of another piece of oversight, I guess, overall for the police department, and also to spread the responsibilities out from just the mayor, not just having the mayor and the chief being responsible for everything, but having a commission that can work in collaboration with the mayor and the chief and the council to be sure that services are working where they're supposed to be. And I guess this is where it got to for me, right? I still have yet to hear any reports or where we're at. I mean, I've spoken briefly with the mayor and a variety of others about where things will be moving in the future with regards to what the audit reported. But for me, we're probably not in a position to move as fast as we would like, right? And because of that, I think that a commission of 3 to 5 different people would allow the room and the space to be able to do that, to be able to together create and devise a strategic plan on how best to approach some of these issues that were addressed in the audit. A lot of it came up with regards to finances. The finance piece we can work on and try to strive to achieve as best as we can, but the piece that we can't ourselves as a council, and that has to be done within the department itself, amongst the chief, the mayor, and if there is a commission, is the building of structures, the building and the rehabbing of culture, because according to the surveys, and again, the surveys wasn't the best resource, Thank you. Some of so some of the officers that are working in the environment don't feel like the culture is a conducive working environment for them. So these are some of the mechanisms for me that would help out with mitigating this issue. So I would like to recognize the city solicitor Bissonette so that he can possibly speak on a couple different options that we have with regards to how to approach this. There is the opportunity, to my understanding, as to go through ordinance, and then there's the other opportunity of just altering the charter altogether. For me, the overall goal would be to alter the charter altogether, but at the same time, it's if we can go through ordinance too and create something in the meantime through ordinance, I am willing to do that. I'd be cool with that too as well. But at the end of the day, the overall goal is to get it instilled into the charter to make sure that this is binding for here and to whenever. So, City Solicitor Bissonette, if you would like to elaborate on that, because you're the lawyer and I'm not, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. The issue of police commission, a lot in municipalities throughout the state, timed, given the post commission, which is now in place statewide, and other issues which have dominated the news. With regard to Holyoke, it has a very unique special act charter. I will tell you that the area that it differentiates most from the Chicopee Charter, which everyone seems to think occurs similar, is in its standalone independent body, such as the Fire Commission and the Board of Public Works, the Water Commission, and the Gas and Electric. Various forms, these were already in existence when Holyoke became a town and then became a city. So as an industrial forerunner of most industrial cities, if you think about it, these things were necessary to create the downtown. Having a fire department to put out, having a water department to be able to flow through the canals and create the power. But the Holyoke forefathers who wrote the charter did not deign to put in a police commission as they did a fire commission. So that leaves Holyoke with two options: a charter change, which would then ostensibly create a police commission similar to that enumerated in the charter for the fire department. And again, it would outline the scope of the powers, the authority, the composition, the power of appointment. In the Holyoke Charter, there is a section that suggests that the city council shall have the power by ordinance to create such ordinances as to administer the police department. Of course, that was back when they also named a city marshal, later changed to the police chief. So assuming we're not dealing with a sort of gunsmoke situation, there are two ways to go here. You can create an ordinance to ostensibly set up a police commission. You can also file a home rule petition with the Massachusetts legislature on the council and the mayor. You can be as specific as you want with your home rule petition. You can outline all the things that I spoke of just a moment ago about scope, composition, manner of appointment, powers. All those things can be in your charter amendment, or it can simply say that the council specifically has the power to create a police commissioner or commissioner on police, and set out how many Mr. Council to do the rest by ordinance. So there are two ways to go.
Excuse me, Mr. Bissonette.
You can set up a police commission. Yes.
I was going to say, can you repeat the last piece? Because we lost you for like a second, that last piece. When you were mentioning the charter change.
The part that, yeah, you can do the charter change as part of adding a new section to the charter, establishing the police commission, and put in whatever minimal scope you want, or however broad you want to write it. You can authorize the council to create a police commission by ordinance, and then go ahead and have the council do that ordinance. So it's up to the committee and the council to decide which way it wants to proceed, but there's no harm in proceeding on two tracks, because eventually you will need an ordinance.
Okay, that makes sense. Councilor GIVNER.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, Attorney Bissonette, what I understood was that we would need a charter change to add or to create a police commission and authorize ordinance to create.
Not necessarily.
The charter to create the police commission.
Not necessarily.
You don't need to do both.
No. So what I understood, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to speak to nobody and nothing like that, but at the end of the day was that we can create this under ordinance.
Right.
It just won't be like binding as like city charter wise. It'll just be an ordinance. That's
I guess that's what I'm saying. We could
and then the other
designate it in the charter, but then still create the ordinance to create a
we would.
commission.
If we did charter first, we would still have to do an ordinance anyways.
Right.
If we did ordinance first to make it set in stone forever, not forever, but.
And what's the benefit to going through legislature with the home rule petition? I didn't quite understand that.
So when you're doing that, you're changing the actual charter, like the bylaws of the city, and that's done only through the state legislature. So if someone wants to rechange it back to a different way, you'd have to go through the same process again. Whereas an ordinance, you and I can file an order to change it.
So if we want to have a police commission ongoing, we should get a home rule petition for it.
If you wanted it to continue on, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I guess. Again, the overall goal should be a charter change, right? But from just learning off a base of what Mr. Bissonette said was, if we do a charter change first, we would still need an ordinance, right? But I would like to pursue, if it's possible, both simultaneously at the same time, right? I'd like to recognize Mayor Garcia.
Mayor Mike.
Mayor Mike, I like that.
I was under the impression that the ordinance can't be in conflict with the charter.
Right. It's not.
So you'd have to do a charter change. You can't just do an ordinance change and expect to have a police commission, right?
The language in the charter now, in my view, allows the city council to administer the police department by ordinance.
Oh.
That would allow them to create a police commission. It also authorizes the mayor to oversee the police department. So again, this would be an authorization from you to the police commission as well by your approval of the ordinance. So we've got both the legislative and executive branch agreeing that by ordinance we are going to create this police commission. There is no problem with doing that as well by a home rule petition. The two are not in conflict, and right now the city would not be in conflict with the charter or state law by creating a police commission. The only, the one thing I want to throw up, Mayor, and you obviously have recent experience with this, is that there would be a question that we may want to refer to legal counsel, a labor counsel on this. given the situation involves management, but I'm sure the unions will say it also involves something that impacts them. So they're going to want to say we want to do impact bargaining. I don't believe it does. I believe it's a governance issue, internal. But you know, that's something we're going to go down this road.
What was that last piece? That's something what?
If we're going to go down the road for a police commission, one way or the other, opposition from the union may be something to anticipate.
That's cool. Council, you all
It's been
set,
my
Mayor?
experience that that oversight is not one of their strong suits.
Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Chair Rivera. Just a couple things. One, and I think Attorney Bissonnette said it, and the mayor alluded to it, but we're just saying it different, is it's the language in the charter that makes the mayor the sole appointing authority of the chief of police. And that's an important part of government, and it's an important part of why you would, if you're going to create anything that would do different, you have to change the charter. There's more to it, and Attorney Bissonnette alluded to that. There's a lot more language in the charter. But to me, the fundamental part of it is if I was mayor and I'm the sole appointing authority of the chief of police, I'm not voting in favor of changing that. And you can't change a charter without the mayor saying yes. Creating an ordinance that would circumvent that would be a problem. So the real issue here is police commission has to be defined. You know, the police commission, there isn't one body, one type that fits all. And we've gone through this a great nauseism of trying to figure out for people who want a police commission exactly what they want. I'll give you the number one example that I would be opposed to is a civilian review board. Our police department is paramilitary, and they operate under training, they operate under laws, they operate under Mass General Law, and the way that they operate is unique to a department that has a commission like the DPW, the gas and electric, the water department. Even the fire department isn't operating under the same type of circumstances. And to take away the authority of the mayor to create a police commission would take a lot of change, not just a charter, but I think it would also be subject, I think the legislature would say it would be subject to a ballot question. Now, the ballot question is the problem because we talked about this the other night, and I think I heard it from some councilors that said, the language of the proposed ballot question for the CPA was confusing. All ballot questions are confusing. If they're not concise because they're yes or no questions, it makes it very, very difficult for a voter to know exactly what they're voting for. And most times voters just vote no because they have no idea what the question is asking. And I think Councilor Rivera, you pointed it out that, and I agree with you. The CPA ballot question that created CPA in Holyoke would be the total opposite of a yes and no to what was being proposed to go on the ballot this year. So I think before you even go forward with talking about charter changes or creating an ordinance, we need to start talking about what is acceptable if we're going to have a police commission, which to me, some things, maybe management, budget, things like that. But we start talking civilian review board, it don't work, in my humble opinion.
There has to be some form of accountability other than just the mayor. I just feel like for me.
Well, I have a lot of faith in the mayors that have governed this city.
But it's just a lot of power in one person.
It's not the mayor. It's who the mayor chooses to be the chief. It's who the chief chooses to be part of the rank and file.
I understand that. But and just for me, and I humbly respect your opinion. I respect you a lot. I'm a Councilor McGivern, just understand that. But for me, the democratic process, right, is including civilians through the process. Civilians are paying the taxes. Civilians are being policed by the police. So who's policing the police? That's the thing to me, right? Overall, who is doing that? Is it just Josh? If it's just the mayor, that's a lot of responsibility onto one person. That is a lot of power to wield, at least for me, in my perspective. And that's one of the reasons why I filed the order. I don't think if I was the mayor, I wouldn't want that much power. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I would divvy up the power, because it doesn't make sense for me as one person to make the final decisions on who gets fired, who gets hired, who gets on the contracts, on all this stuff. Like, for me, just one person making that one decision, it's not one person that makes the decisions on the council, it's 13 of us. So it's I mean.
Correct. And we do have a say in a lot of things that go on within a department, although we don't manage, and we shouldn't overstep the mayor's authority to manage. Now, the second part of the question with the police commission is, how do you create, who appoints a police commission?
Right. That's
are you saying the mayor has a lot of authority by one person, but you want the mayor to appoint the police commission?
But I honestly,
the mayor appoints the fire commission.
Honestly,
the mayor appoints the DPW commission.
I honestly would do an elected.
The mayor appoints the gas and electric commission.
I would do an elected position.
We appoint the water commission.
In other places, they elect police commissioners. In other places, they elect fire commissioners. In other places, they elect all that stuff.
So now,
in my opinion, that would be the best democratic process for everyone to be
involved. 3 to 5 people on a police commission elected, and they're going to have a lot of power. The mayor can't say anything over them because they're an elected body.
So the thing to me, though, I mean, and no disrespect, I don't want to go off topic. I see 2 hands up. Is like a lot of these orders has been around oversight, right? And then everything with oversight, there's an issue here within the community, and it's been like this way for a while, bro. So when we bring up oversight for stuff, like, people push back, and not saying that that's what you're doing, Councilor McGivern.
I am pushing back.
But at the end of the day, though, like, people are pushing back crazy, and it's like, this is what we need, though, like, in my opinion, right? Like, because we haven't had this ever. And so, like, I don't know, but let me recognize Councilor Vacan, because she's been waiting for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor McGivern went into it in more depth than the question that I wanted to raise, but the question that I would ask the committee to try to get their arms around would be beyond looking at and following up on the audit, what would be the authority that your committee would recommend that this commission would have? And I heard Attorney Bissonette say that to create the commission would not be in conflict with our charter. And that is true unless you are seeking to have the commission have hiring authority over the chief, because then we would be in conflict with our charter, because we are organized as a strong mayor form of government, and we had a lot of debate about changing our charter in the past, but we have kept a strong mayor form of government here in our city. And so to fundamentally change that, from what I'm hearing tonight, would require a charter change.
But if the mayor signed off, and I'm just saying devil's advocate, right? If that were to be true, if the mayor signed off on it, ultimately, isn't that approval of the mayor anyways?
So now I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to try to pretend I am, but I do not believe that the mayor alone can change the charter. Whether he can agree that we can form a commission by ordinance.
No, I mean in reference to saying that we are a strong mayorship government, right? So if we're saying that we're stripping the power away from the mayor, we're technically not stripping the power away from the mayor if the mayor signs off on the hiring.
So because the charter says that the mayor is the appointing authority for the police chief,
and him signing
in the
off,
charter, the mayor cannot by himself change that.
Okay, thank you.
From what I understand of it.
Okay.
But that isn't to say that we couldn't form a commission, but the commission would not be able to be the hiring authority.
Of the chief.
Yes.
But they can hire other staff members.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I would defer to legal on that.
Okay. Mayor Garcia?
Hey, everybody. So the big thing behind having, so the key thing for me is transparency and communication, to strengthen that at every which way possible. And there's no way better than doing that than to have something that has to follow the open meeting law. And so right now, the current structure as it exists, yeah, the mayor is in charge of the department. I appoint the chief, and believe it or not, I appoint every officer that's in that department, from the new recruits to those that are promoted to sergeant, lieutenant, and captains. And then also I'm the oversight authority on a lot of different issues, and then having to make sure that working together with the chief to deal with other things. I also got to oversee a bunch of other different responsibilities and departments. And so the idea of having this police commission, I think, can strengthen transparency and communication, and also strengthen a little bit of oversight and some accountability, because they have to follow the open meeting law. And although the mayor ideally, would be the appointing authority, these meetings would have to take place, and decisions would have to take place under open meeting law, and people can, if we're not liking the folks we're appointing, the mayor can certainly hold those appointees accountable, or, the public can hold the mayor accountable through the normal elections. I think, the benefit of having this oversight board will have a group solely focused on improving things within the department. I think there's this thought about government that's not good and bad, and they can't understand how this will be good and how it will improve things. But if folks would understand that that there's a lot of good that can come out of this if we did have a police commission that can better promote the idea of a lot of what came out of that report, between morale issue and concerns and lack of trust, and there are many things in there that could be resolved. There was just a little bit more communication, a little bit more transparency. So there are a lot of assumptions of what people think is happening, and when decisions are made, a lot of assumptions of what people think the mayor's intention was, and a possible corruption because of a connection or a relationship, or there's all of this assumptions happening internally. I think is contributing to that negative morale, and that could be easily resolved if we had a little more transparency. And there's nothing more transparent than making these decisions in an open setting where the public's invited to observe, and you can observe minutes or record meetings. And we're talking about decisions oftentimes that I make in here that, really aren't secret, like who we're recruiting to be new officers, or who we're promoting to be the next lieutenants, sergeants, and captains. That process is clear, and we follow civil service, but no matter how simplified I sit in this office and try to make it, somehow, some way, morale gets impacted because somebody assumes that, the mayor intentionally skipped the list or was promoting this person because he's related to that person, or whatever the case. And I just think that by having an oversight board like this that has to follow open meeting law, if we did it the right way, government can benefit and improve the morale within the department, and improve the services that the community is experiencing. And that oversight and accountability is so important. We all have to be accountable, including me, we talked a little bit earlier on about enforcement and who does the enforcing on X, Y, or Z. By having a dedicated board focus on strategic direction, on goals, objectives, priorities, and holding those within the department accountable to meeting them, I think can go a long way, in a really good way for the department. This isn't meant to scrutinize or to hurt the department. This is meant to help what's happening in there. Again, you know, the mayor, yes, strong mayor. I'm in charge of the department. I'm also in charge of a whole lot of other things happening in the city. And when things bubble up in the department, while trying to take care of other things going on, sometimes it is hard to focus on just one thing. Then you get the calls and the questions and the concerns, and then everybody wants a response, and then counselors call, and I got to respond to it. It can get a little overwhelming, but having an open public body that has to follow open meeting laws to take care of the business, the administrative top level business of the department, I think can go a long way to a lot of the concerns or the perceived concerns that we're experiencing today. So just so that folks know, I'm in full support of this. You know, there's no concern about me vetoing anything on my end or whether or not the mayor will support. But if the council sees value in this and proceeds forward, whatever the process, again, I'm more than happy to sign off and support creating such a body.
Thank you. Councilor GIVNER?
I just had a quick question. So if we were to want to create a police commission, would we need to outline its makeup and how we go about creating it before moving it forward?
I think if we moved it to charter and rules, I think in charter and rules or wherever it moves to, that's the next conversation would be that and pursuing the if it's the charter rule, it'll be the charter rule or whatnot. Yeah. Speaking to legal about doing all that process, right, Counselor?
That's my understanding too. We have to decide whether we want.
I seen you point over there. So.
No, I mean, I think we've all said our piece. Charter to me is the path that needs to be taken. Yeah. But before you even think about it, you got to define what we're trying to create. I told you what I'm against, but it's procedural. You know, it's not. You can't just say police commission. Right. The mayor's being kind. The mayor told you what government is right now and what a mayor does, and whether you believe it's the right way or not, it's the existing way, and that means the voters of the city have a say over it. But how do you present it to the voters if the legislature makes you do it by a ballot question? Hmm. And then the only other way to change it, 3 ways to change a charter is 2/3 of this body, the mayor signs off, and 2/3 of the legislature and the governor signs off. A ballot question first has to go to the state for their approval, and then they can dictate. They can change the language of the ballot question. Mm. And the third way is the charter commission, which unfortunately is the purest way to change the charter. But when we've had charter commissions, they've tackled everything in the charter, some believing that's what they were charged to do or that's what they had to do. And the voters, may have agreed with 10 things that they proposed to change, but 2 they didn't, and they only had 1 yes and 1 no. And they voted no.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It should be quick. I'm just going to say my quick 2 cents. First, I don't think any of the councilors should be against a police commission, especially after the study that was done by MRI. We have a police department that has no training. Essentially, we're just putting out officers without any real training, no actual training on tasers, no use of force policy. There's articles about how majority of civilian complaints are being dismissed. There's a lot that was brought up in that study and in other conversations with other people. Regardless of how you felt about the study or not, I believe that this commission is what needs to happen next, regardless of what the makeup will be. And I think that should be the discussion, like who would be on the commission, what the purpose is of the commission, as far as like what decisions should be made, all those sort of things. Yes, I think those we can have a debate on, but I do hope that us as a city council, just on that study alone, that I think we hopefully all can agree that there has to be some sort of entity, some sort of board commission that overlooks the whole police department. It's our second biggest budget in our city that has no civilian oversight, and it can be, and it can look however which way we decide. And I think that's a discussion we'll have here. But we need to have some sort of police commission. And I think the mayor just said it perfectly. And echoing with, following along with what Councilor Bacon was saying, it is a mayor-heavy city. There's a lot of responsibility we push on the mayor. And now today we have a mayor saying essentially that having a police commission may actually be good, beneficial, not just for the city, but for the police department itself. And I think we should take that and really go with it and work hard on getting this police commission up and running sooner rather than later. Whatever long it takes. I don't know. I know during one of the public comments, Mr. Purcell did say that this police commission ballot question did come up twice already. I'm not aware of what those ballot questions were, but I will do more research on that because it has happened before, and the city and the people of Holyoke have said yes to it. So it doesn't seem like something out of the ordinary. I think, yes, we can debate on what exactly the powers this commission should have, but a commission is one that should be, a police commission should be one that exists within the city of Holyoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez. And I think for me, the last piece I would say on it is again, the intention with filing this is kind of trying to get like structure and things in order, more or less, over there with regards to how we provide services, right, and how we provide training, how we provide educational opportunities there, and at the same time how we do the hiring, the firing, and I think there's a huge piece missing with regards to like strategic planning, like forward planning, like preparing for future things that could possibly happen. And I think that the commission could take the time to actually do that alongside the chief, because the chief at the moment, it seems like, is burdened with a lot of different issues, right? So having a police commission that he could bounce ideas off of or work in collaboration with would help tremendously with building out the structure and possibly getting us to, what is it called, accreditation, if that's the right word, right? But I guess I would entertain a motion that this order is complied with, and that it get taken up in the charter and rules to try to pursue it as a charter change. It's already, I think it was sent to charter and to ordinance.
Oh, great. With
a copy to public safety, but I just wanted to have the public discussion first, and then they can take it up after the fact. Is your hand still up, Councilor Maldonado Velez?
No, sorry.
All right, thank you. So yeah.
All right, motion that items 4 and 5 be complied with.
Thank you. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item 6.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 6 was filed by Councilor Anderson Burgos. Order that Chief Pratt come in to discuss a possible gun drop-off program. Captain Moriarty is here, I believe, to address this. This was an item that was tabled back on March 6th. We were just waiting to get more information, I guess.
Yes, sir. We've been in contact with the DA's office and the Mass State Police since they've coordinated past events like this. What we're waiting for is obviously a little bit better weather and just a little more direction coming from the DA and the state police. We are, as I said, we are in contact with them, and we do plan on hosting this type of event.
Thank you. That's pretty cool, because I think he was, and Councilor Anderson Burgos could speak more to it, but I think he was just filing it just to see if, like, what happened to them. And it sounds like you guys are starting to organize something. But go ahead, Councilor Anderson Burgos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I did want to know what happened to them, but I also was hoping to see something more permanent as to like something that's done periodically. I would like to see it more permanent, and if so, what that would look like. I think this is a deeper conversation, a lengthier conversation, and I don't know. I think that's where I'm at with it.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm cooking dinner. I just got home. I'm like starving.
I guess from what I'm hearing from
Yeah.
you, Councilor Anderson Burgos, is that you would like to see it be something that the city take on as an initiative, right? And what I'm hearing from the police department is that this is not something we normally take on as an initiative. This is something we normally collaborate with the DA's office. Am I correct, Captain Moriarty?
Yes, because once we are planning, once we get like the first one off, we are looking into making it an annual event.
Yep.
But part of this is when the weapons are turned in, for example, pertaining to our evidence room, that we have a contract with an outside agency that when a weapon which is involved in a violent or felon type crime, and when the court case is done and we have notification from the courts, that weapon is taken out of evidence and it's given to this private company where it's destroyed and follows all the regulations of how weapons are destroyed, how the weapon is documented as being destroyed.
Yeah.
So we just need to coordinate all this, and once we get our first program done, I'm sure there'll be a learning curve for everybody. But we are planning on making this an annual event. We do believe it's an important event.
And real quick to Captain Moriarty, the cost behind this, right? Because we're buying the guns back. Does that come from us or that comes from the DA's office?
That's one of the biggest questions, actually.
So that's the thing.
I can't really give exact numbers, but there are people who actually just turn the weapons in. It could be a weapon that belongs to a now deceased family member and they want nothing to do with it.
Yep.
And there are numerous times weapons are just turned in. There are some people who will look for some sort of cash buyout. It's not at the value of the weapon.
Nope.
I believe there's a standard price that's just given to somebody if they're interested in receiving cash. And these are the questions we need answered.
Yep. I
How
hear
is
you.
that done? Where are these resources coming from?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And the reason I'm asking is just to have an understanding of how much more legwork needs to get put into it for it to be a more consistent basis, right? So good luck in navigating the first annual piece of it.
Right. We'll get it done. I mean, these programs have happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we'll get it done.
Awesome. Juan, so you want me to table it or complied with and you file another one later on?
No, let's table it. Captain Moriarty, when are we having the annual? When did you say the annual? The first one's gonna happen?
Well, we don't have a specific date right now. We're working all the details out.
Okay, so we can have this complied with, and then Captain Moriarty, if you don't mind, would you be willing to send me the date when you have that available? That way I could just sort of see how it works out and see, I don't know, do a little bit of more brainstorming around it and see how we can make it permanent.
That makes sense.
Yes, sir. Once we have all the details and it's pretty much all set up, I'll make sure you're advised. What I will do actually is advise all the city councilors via
Right, I was
email.
going to say that.
And just like any other press release, because you do have to advertise it.
Yep.
So we will advise all news agencies. We'll be putting on our social media so everyone will be aware of the event.
All right. No,
That's perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
Thank you both.
We're gonna motion to table item 6.
No, complied with. He just.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
complied with. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, motion that item 6 be complied with. Sorry.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6 is tabled.
Motion to take up item 7.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 7 was ordered by Councilor Bacon. Order that public cameras throughout the city be updated, replaced, and added as needed to ensure safety and compliance with laws, and needed funding transfers be approved when necessary. Councilor Bacon, if you would like to elaborate on this order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this order was sort of a companion order with the other one that I had filed seeking the camera on Homestead Avenue. And I guess we're still waiting for feedback from legal on that particular placement of that camera. But separately from that, we've had a number of cameras, and I did speak with Mayor Garcia on this a number of months ago, that had been put up in areas where there were safety concerns, but then there have been reports that have come in that they are not functioning. And from time to time, they've been moved from one area to another in the city throughout the years. And then in addition to that, as an example, we put one up in an alley where there were some issues to try to help improve safety there. And so this was just sort of a general thing that if we have cameras that the mayor wants or have been previously approved, that they're actually doing what we think they're doing, and if they're not, that we get them in order, and that if there's questions about whether ones would be effective or not, that we could just follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilor Reagan. This is actually a pretty, so I'm glad you elaborated on that, because this is kind of, the way it's written to me is kind of broad, right? Because, like, I don't know if you've seen the other cameras that are all throughout Holyoke, the little white egg ones that got installed back in the mid 90s, I think. So when you filed this order, I thought you meant by those cameras. And I was like, wow, like that's a lot of cameras. That's going to be a lot of money. But go ahead, Mayor Garcia.
You guys are talking about cameras citywide? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So yes, something we are, I'm working from the middle out, trying to address a lot of the things internally, but also being mindful of the things externally from City Hall that's going to help local government, and cameras obviously is one of them. The chief did, as we're preparing our budget for the next fiscal year and looking at all the different revenue sources we have, the chief did give me some quotes of what the anticipated costs are to replace existing cameras that are not functioning throughout the city, and then or also add new cameras in strategic areas. And so, it is something that will be coming in front of you soon somehow with some sort of strategic method to pay for it. We certainly want to get caught up with the technology of today and making sure that we have functioning cameras, and not only have functioning cameras, but also capacity internally to be sure that we're appropriately reviewing them and that we're appropriately keeping them updated and so forth. So technology today is very different than what it was 20 years ago. I'm sure it is a lot more efficient, effective today with the capital as it relates to cameras and what's needed. But I know Councilor Bacon's brought this up. We've had these conversations. It is on our radar. We are planning for them. But again, what I inherited here, I'm focusing a lot internally. Like, for example, thanks to the support of the council, we were able to get the funds last year to get the cameras installed in the police department as well as City Hall. I believe and I think Captain has his hands up, they're currently getting installed, and soon they'll be moving over and focused on getting the cameras here at City Hall. So, we're trying to take care of our buildings, and then also branch out and focus on how we can improve public safety using technology. So.
Thank you. Before I recognize you, Councilor GIVNER, let me recognize Captain Moriarty. Go ahead, Captain Moriarty.
Thank you, sir. So pertaining to the city cameras, most a majority of them are minimum 15 years old. We do have cameras that are working. Some of the cameras are down. The typical price of a new camera is minimum $5,000 to $6,000. Repairs, some quotes have gone up to $8,000. I'm trying to be in contact with my IT guys because they're really the ones telling me what's going on with this, and I just shake my head and say, yep, okay, great. So half of the charge is due to the Holyoke Gas and Electric mounting them. We are looking at other avenues, possibly third parties to install. A lot of times we are looking at grants to pertain to them. And the cameras have been, over the years, proved to be very valuable, not only pertaining to crimes committed, but motor vehicle accidents.
Yes.
And there are specific intersections or locations throughout the city that may not be considered high crime, but they are high traffic. And we would like to be able someday to be able to have cameras in those areas to help with any type of motor vehicle collisions that do occur. It's just that, yes, technology is expensive, but we do see a need for it. It's just, as we all know, it's always about the money and the financing, correct?
Yeah, and I think, before I recognize you again, my bad. So I think one of the most important things is planning, right? It's planning for the camera, planning throughout the time of the camera's lifespan, and then planning post camera. So like if we're putting up the camera, okay, who's going to watch the camera? Do we need to pay somebody to watch the camera, or does the recording go to a cloud somewhere that we can refer back to later on, which would be great, right? We don't necessarily have to pay someone.
There are both. We do have cameras that, all the city cameras obviously feed into several locations within the police department. So they can't be viewed immediately, but there is also a recording function that all the cameras have. So we can go back. I'm not sure on the length of when the camera data is saved. Is it 3 days? Is it 7 days? Is it a month? But we have done both, actually, where at times we are able to have someone watch the camera directly, but that doesn't happen a lot. But after the event, we are able to call up that camera, go through the times, and if it's either pointed in that direction and it's obviously working, we can pull information from that camera.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilor GIVNER.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question about the difference between city cameras being used for general surveillance versus traffic. I don't understand the difference. There's no difference. So we can now use cameras to watch traffic? Or we can't ticket traffic, we can just observe it? It's very confusing to me.
Right, well, if we had the personnel, I know there are, like in England or Japan, they'll be running 100 different streams, and they actually have personnel that's their job 8 hours a day is just to watch the cameras.
I'm sorry.
We don't do that.
Yeah, no, Captain Moriarty. I think she means with regards to the legality of actually watching traffic as they're driving, like recording traffic, like
ticketing traffic
off of a camera.
Off of a camera.
You kind of can't do that.
So what kind of information can you use from a camera from surveilling people that you can't use to use for traffic enforcement?
If there's a car accident, right, for example, boom, and that happened on the camera, you can use that. But you can't, if someone needs,
So if people run red lights, unless they kill someone, you can't use the information?
Right.
That's great.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Oh, man. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I think the key issue is that in areas where there are safety concerns and compliance concerns, then the amount and the number of incidents can be recorded, whereas now it's reports coming in from time to time here and there. And that's one side of it. So I'm still advocating for the Homestead Westfield Road intersection there because of those concerns. But along with that, as Captain Moriarty indicated, there's been some in areas where they've been very effective, but to the extent that they're not working any longer, and we certainly don't want to know precisely which ones do and don't work, because that wouldn't help public safety either. I just think, and I'm supportive and filed this order to support the mayor, who is our mayor, who is trying to bring some of these things up to date and get them more functional. So that's really my bigger picture motive behind it. Thank you.
So, Councilor Bacon, would you say that we've complied with the order, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would. And I believe the other specific order is tabled in
Yeah.
committee still, waiting
Yep.
for legal.
Yep. All right.
So motion that item 7 be complied with.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Motion to take up item 8.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 8 was filed by Councilor Maldonado Velez, myself, and Councilor GIVNER. Order that an RFP be created to study a community respondent model type program that is outside of the police department but works in collaboration with the department as one of the several contributing partners. This item was tabled before. If the mayor is still present, maybe he can speak on that. But before, I guess I'll recognize Councilor Maldonado Velez because he was I think the main writer, and I signed on, and Councilor GIVNER signed on.
I don't remember, Mr. Chairman, but
I know it was a while back.
But I do, I think it was brought up last month. I don't have any new information since then, so I don't know if the mayor has any updates.
So yeah, if Mayor Garcia has any updates, if he's still with us, if not, then
Sorry, I didn't mean to have my hand up.
no. I mean updates on the RFP be created to study a community responder model type program. Because I think this is towards you.
Yeah, there's no update or even a plan
Okay.
or anything to do an RFP for a community response model.
Okay, so then I will, Jose, we table it for another 6 months?
I'm down. Yeah, I'm down to table it. We don't have to take it up soon. I think there's. I know for me the conversation around the police commission is going to take a little bit.
Yep.
Where the time. But I do. But instead of just complying with or getting rid of this order, we leave it in the public safety whenever we're ready to go back to it. That'd be great.
All right. You have another question, Josh? Mayor Garcia, or no?
Yeah, I was just, I guess table so I could understand more, because there are some community response initiatives that have been going on, and then also, the effort that you guys are aware of trying to establish the liaison, the homeless liaison, housing navigator position, how that person's going to collaborate with the Board of Health and other departments, as well as, we're rich in public service, so collaborating with our existing organizations to kind of expand on our community response efforts. But I think that's not what the counselor is looking for. So I guess I just want to learn more.
We'll just table it if anything.
Yeah,
Wait.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to to Mayor Garcia. I was just wondering, for the initiatives that are in place, are those civilians or are those through the police department only?
So in Ray Street, we have BHN working with the police department through the drop-off, what they call the drop-off center, but I think that's it's a hub. And then also you have other efforts of different departments and organizations all, working together to try to navigate community and quality of life issues. And then, we're thinking the homeless liaison person is going to help add value to that network that we have already.
And the homeless liaison would be a civilian working for
It'll be a city
the
employee.
city?
City
Okay.
employee, yeah. So if our systems, like the Board of Health, the building department, and things are going to get better over time as we improve those departments. The legal department has definitely stepped up their game with the housing court situation. Things were bottlenecking for a little bit, and we were able to untangle that knot. So once the system works the way it's intended to work, you should see things be a lot better when trying to, effectively respond to a lot of these quality of life challenges, including conditions of buildings, cleanliness on properties. The other thing too is I'm trying to think outside the box yet again. I know there's been folks pressuring on creating for example, what are we calling it? A housing,
tenant rights.
Oh God, tenant protection. Yeah, is partnering with a nonprofit that would be the Office of Tenant Protections, and we can potentially support it, whether through CDBG or ARPA funds. But just so that folks know, and I was clear before that, I don't have plans or intentions at this time to establish a whole new separate department or model that we have to fund through appropriation when we got so many other needs that I'm trying to resolve here.
So for this particular topic, and I hear the hub and all the other stuff, it's just that, like, with regards to like the audit piece, right? And one of the things that stood out to me, right, was that we have police officers doing civilian duties, and a lot of what's happening at Race Street is civilian duties, in my perspective, right? So we have police officers at Race Street that are considered to be one of our 100 and something, I think it's like 100 or 93 officers that should be out on the streets doing their jobs. Instead, they're doing social work which could be assigned through social work agencies. And again, we have BHN, we have a variety of different agencies in the same space, but there are a variety of people that need these services that if you talk to them, they don't feel comfortable in those spaces. So for us, it's like, what are we really accomplishing? Yeah, the services are there and they're being provided, but if the people aren't not feeling comfortable in the place and don't want to take advantage of the services, like we got to do something. Yeah, we would have to be doing something to meet the people in the middle, right? And for me, a more holistic approach would be coming from that type of approach of a community responder model type of approach. It is innovative, it is new, and it would cost a lot to build out and take some time and effort for us to actually invest and go through that process. But I think it would be beneficial because we have been doing things a certain way, right? And I don't know how impactful it has been, right? But that's just my own perspective when it comes to it, right? I would prefer to work with people that have gone through it and battled through these issues and came out of it and succeeded versus working with people that are coming in with suits and ties or usually some form of authority that is coming to tell you that you should be doing things different. And I'm just speaking from the perspective of coming from a place like that. And Councilor Vacan, and then I'll recognize the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to note that there's also been a pretty strong outreach component to the collaboration. And so there have been people that are in the human services arena. It hasn't just been the police going out reaching out. It's really been a two-pronged type of thing to try to meet the people in the middle and help them access the services if they're in a place where they're ready to do that. So I just think that's a strength of the collaboration that I believe is still ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Garcia.
Yeah, I was just going to respond and add that I think it's really easy to hear and respond to what doesn't work when it happens, but certainly there's been a lot of good that nobody hears about as well. But to that point, though, Councilor, you're right. We want to continue to evolve and try to think a little more creatively to be that much more better, while also, being sensitive to the fact of our own needs. Again, what's coming out of the audit, and making sure that which is why I think that the housing navigator position, I think, is going to help fill some of that gap and allow us to pivot in other areas, but not just stop there. In time, continue to cultivate and try to grow in a way that allows the system, the government system, in tandem with those organizations that are boots on the ground doing the important work, that system's functioning the way it's supposed to, so that we can adequately respond to issues as they appear. But just so you know, even when we get there, there's still going to be something that's not working, where someone's going to get a not so good, and somebody's going to hear it and then think that that's what it is. There's pieces of it that doesn't allow us to always win, but the issues that everybody's dealing with is one it's extremely complicated for this whole city. We're talking about folks that are very struggling. That there is actually some good stories to tell, that we don't go around and announcing and saying, hey, look what we did. We helped this person do X, but we only hear about the bad and how it's not working. And so, I just wanted to share some thought and perspective that it's not all bad. There's good. But to your point, though, Councilor, yes, we can always be better. And so I'm hoping to work toward that, but to wait for one and get it done by July 1, that's a tall order. And I know you know that. I was just kind of sharing some thought on it.
No, thank you. And before I recognize Councilor Maldonado Velez, for me, any good that comes from any program that is put out here in the community, I support it 110%. I'm with that. But it's good in helping 4 or 5 people versus good in helping 10 to 20 people, 30 to 40 people. That's the kind of impact I'm looking for. Obviously, my goals are I'm shooting high. And then the other piece is, it's kind of difficult, and this is just a personal piece for me. It's kind of difficult to go into a space to ask and request help when at one point it was an adversarial relationship. That's all. That's one of the main things for me. And with this piece, with the community responder model, it's taking out that adversarial piece, even though it doesn't exist anymore, but it may have existed at one time, that traumatic piece. But Councilor Maldonado Velez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for just saying that, because I think that's the biggest, sort of for me, the clearest picture to paint as to why we need something that is separate from the police department, where you're dealing with a mental health crisis or any sort of crisis intervention. It's not met with someone in a suit, in a police uniform. I was actually in a training today. My full-time job is manager of a victim services program, and the conversation today in the training this morning was around how 90% of the victims get re-victimized once they're in contact with the police. Now, this is not a fault of the police. I think as we have talked in the last year, we're tasking them with jobs that they're not supposed to be doing. Sometimes they are in a rush. They have to do so many other things that they just have to, go through the motions quickly. And whatever the case is, that statistics stand. Like 90% of victims are re-victimized. Now you have a city like Holyoke where many of our people, or I don't say many, but you have a good chunk of our people, we have counselors that have been arrested by the police officers themselves. Is that trust there? Maybe not, So I think, echoing back to what I said earlier, where I would love this to be tabled because I do believe there should be an entity that does exist that is separate from the police department. But I think the first step, at least for me, is getting the police commission and making sure the police department is working. I'll agree with you, Mayor Garcia. Let's see what we have available, what exists, and making sure that those things do exist. But at one point, we have to be honest with ourselves. Like, if those things are not existing, then we need to try something different. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it right now.
Thank you, Councilor GIVNER.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would definitely support tabling this because as light and fluffy as I like to think having our police force work with, social services and provide services, I definitely hear what Councilor Rivera and Maldonado Velez are saying. My personal view on this is that our police department is understaffed. Citizens are requesting police presence and patrols in their neighborhoods. We lack traffic enforcement, which we know. There's blatant drug dealing in public, in the open in our city. And we need our police policing. We have social services in our city, and I think it's really important that we use those social services and that, the police can recommend people to those social services. But I just feel like it's a real waste of our police talent to have our police force doing social work. We really need them in other places. We need them on bicycles. We need them on foot. We need them visible so that we can make our citizens feel safe. I've had business owners actually tell me today that they have people who don't want to come to their businesses because there's so many panhandlers outside. Now, presence in our different business areas would really make a difference to those businesses. People are threatening to leave because they have people who come to visit them and want to get walked from their parking spot to a storefront, and that's really unacceptable. So I hate to think that, instead of policing our city, we have the police making sure that one or two people get a service when there's all these social services already available in our city. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to table.
Motion to table item 8.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Everyone
you.
have a good night. Thank you.